very basically, it's fermented juice. You crush your apples, you start your fermentation, you wait about 6 to 8 weeks, and you have cider. And how many times have you heard the story of somebody saying, oh, the best cider I ever had was my grandpa's back porch. We'd have a jug, we'd crack the lid, let it sit for a couple months, and it was just the best thing ever. And that's true. Cider can just make itself, given time and the right ingredients, and it just is a wonderful product that it will turn out beautiful. That is one of the best ways to make cider.
It has now become a more managed process so that you can get a sort of repeating pattern of certain ciders. And so in our cider barn, we're selective about the variety of apples and the sort of blend of juice, and then we're selective about the yeast that we're introducing into the juice to ferment out the sugars, and then we're selective about the finishing process. So does it go into oak barrels? Does it stay in the tank? Does it get filtered? Does it get blended with some other fruit or spice?
Apples have natural yeasts, that are that's why apple juice starts fermenting right away. But, through the whole process, the crushing and pressing and stuff, those yeasts are still there, active, and we incorporate them. They're in the air, they're all over, but they're on the apples too.
Wild yeast is everywhere. And in the orchard, it's on every apple. It's all the way through the apples. It's on the leaves. It's everywhere. Given time, it's a little bit wilder, so it's harder to deal with in some ways. It's less predictable. But when you get it to work right, it's beautiful and the best.
As the yeasts ferment the juice, they produce alcohol and CO2. So when you have a fermentation, in a tank, you can hear it. You can put your ear to the tank and you can hear the bubbles in the tank. And
there's a lot of different ways to do your primary fermentation on your must. And we do several different approaches. Some will use just the wild yeast in the air. Others we use a champagne yeast for. The wild yeast is kind of an interesting one. You get very different flavor profiles from that. It also tends to stop the fermentation earlier while you've still got some residual sugars in there to work with. When we use a champagne fermentation, that just takes it to total dryness. And then you work backwards from there to determine what you want to do with that.